All right, but wait a minute till I lower it down for you. I got news for you girls. Good news.
You're going to get married.
Well, that too. But next week there's going to be a troop party in honor of Mrs. Green, your new leader. And it's going to be at my house.
Oh, Scotty, what fun.
Now, you know what we always say, do it, don't talk about it.
Shall we use the recipe book we made up?
Yeah, I think that'd be an excellent idea. There's some very good recipes in it, don't you think?
Just that playroom treatment. Yes?
Mary, how'd you do with the money?
Almost $18 so far.
Good.
Scotty, it's for you.
We really were like a family, and I know that sounds corny, but it's true. We just all got along great, and it was just a wonderful. I guess Cookie wants to go visit Marie, the cat. It was just a wonderful, very warm set, and what I remember is that Loretta Young, not only did she allow us to see the dailies, but she insisted upon it. And back in those days, they used to call them the rushes. I don't know why, but now they call them the dailies, where after each, day's filming, the producer, director, writer, editor, whatever, would go in and watch them. And usually, the actors were not allowed to go in unless it was, the main star. But sorry about that. She wanted us to see the day's work because we would learn from it. And I had this one little habit that was, this is very embarrassing, can't believe I'm saying this, but I wasn't aware of it. But I had, this is very embarrassing, but I had this habit that I would say something and then I would go. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I did that and I didn't know. And so at one time, she told me that she wanted me to see what I had done. And so we went in and we watched the dailies, and I saw that I had done that, and it was humiliating. But anyway, I learned from it. And her theory was that if you watch yourself, you see things that you've done that were good and were not so good in like certain expressions, or so you learn from it. And so it was a fun thing. We would always go at the end of the day and watch the dailies from the day before. And then of course she had her famous cuss box on the set, and if any of the crew would say a swear word, they'd have to put a quarter in. That shows you how long ago, a quarter. But that was always a cute thing.
Can you wonder why she worked with you so much? She liked working with you. I mean, she told me, but what do you think you had in common that she liked working with you so much?
I have no idea. I just am very blessed that I had that, with her. We had a wonderful rapport, and as I said, I did several of her episodes. Originally, there was the Girl Scout story, and then there was, oh dear. You want to cut, and I'll put her in her room. Let me put her in her room. Can you cut? Okay, sorry about that.
No, Ellen, really? Ellen, lucky. Crossed my heart and hoped to die. My father came home this morning. He wasn't dead. Not one bit. He was... Oh, I forgot. It's a secret. Come on, tell us, please. Well, my father was in prison all the time. Oh, no. Alan.
I actually started modeling children's clothes when I was 3, and my older sister and I used to go around to different hospitals and things doing benefit shows, and I met Jock Mahoney, who was the range rider in Yancey Derringer. And I was about 6 at the time, and I had an agent. My mother got me an agent, and I would go on these, various interviews, auditions, and I would never get the part because I had no credits. I mean, can you imagine that, 6 years old with no credits? And anyway, so I met Jock Mahoney, and a couple months later, I was at Columbia, and I was interviewing for a part called The Killer That Stalked New York with Evelyn Keyes and Dorothy Malone and William Bishop. And my mother, who has since passed away, she was a very sweet, just a real soft-spoken lady, and she was always very supportive. And when we got there, they had what's called the sides, which is the scene that you're reading for. And I was supposed to be this little girl who gets smallpox. Well, in the script, it said, sitting there is little Walda Kowalski with her big brown eyes and her long brown hair. And of course, I'm blonde and blue-eyed. So I remember my mother saying, honey, you're not going to get this part, but just go in and, you know, do your best. Well, as fate would have it, Jock Mahoney was under contract at the time to Columbia, and he walked through the lobby, and I was sitting there, and he remembered me from having met me at this hospital in Long Beach doing this benefit show. And he asked my mother what I was doing there, and she said, well, she's, you know, going to read for this part, but she's not really right for it, you know. So he said, wait a minute. So he goes in there, and he said, oh, she's done this, and she's done that. Of course, I hadn't done a thing. So he basically lied, and they kind of took me on his say-so, you know, and so I got that part. And then once I had that one speaking credit under my belt, you know, it was easier because then I would go on interviews and I could say that I had just worked in a movie. So after that, I did Here Comes the Groom with Bing Crosby and Jane Wyman, and Hans Christian Andersen with Danny Kaye. I was the little girl that he sang Thumbelina to. And The Greatest Show on Earth, and The Juggler with Kirk Douglas, and, you know, just kind of segued into TV. And
did you like acting? Were you natural at it, do you think?
You know, I loved it. And the one thing that I'm grateful for is that my parents were very supportive, but they never pushed me into it, because I've always thought that the saddest thing is to see children doing it that don't really want to be there, you know, because I worked with a little boy once on a show, and I remember he didn't want to be there. He wanted to be out playing with his buddies, baseball and whatever, and his mother was like, you know, shaking him and telling him to get in there and do the scene, and it made me sad, because it's got to be something that you want to do, and for whatever reason, I enjoyed it, and I just feel very blessed, you know, looking back over my career. When you're that little, because when I was 8, I did the Jack Benny show, and he was my other favorite. Loretta Young and Jack Benny, my two favorites. And, you know, you look back over your career, and at the time, when you're working with Jack Benny or Loretta Young or Kirk Douglas or, you know, Alan Ladd, because I did Shane as well, and you don't realize, yeah, at the time, you know, you're just doing a job, and then years later you look back, like I did Superman and the Mole Man with George Reeves, and then you get old and you go, wow, I worked with Superman, how cool is that? You know, but at the time it's, you know.
It's a job.
Yeah, and like I was directed by Cecil B. DeMille and George Stevens and Frank Capra and all that, but it didn't mean anything, you know, when you're 8 or 9, it doesn't mean anything.
How did you get started with the Loretta Young show?
Well, the first time I went on an audition, actually back in those days they didn't call them auditions, they called them interviews. An audition at that time would be if you were auditioning like singing or dancing for a musical or a play or whatever. But when you had, they called it an interview, your agent would call and say, I've got an interview, and then you'd go and read for the part. So I had read for the Loretta Young show, and I'm trying to remember which episode, because I did several. It might have been the one called Katie, where I played Katie, who was an orphan, and it was a wonderful part. I was truly blessed to get that part, and it went very well. And so then several times when there would be a part for a little girl, Loretta Young would ask for me. And then as I got older, she did the new Loretta Young show, and I was with William Morris at the time, and I remember they just called me and said that there was going to be a series, and she had asked for me, and it was just great. And she was just such a sweet, genteel, lovely woman, and I was fortunate in that I was able to stay in touch with her up until the time she died. She was very hands-on. She was involved with everything as far as, you know, the makeup and hair and wardrobe, and she she kind of took on the role as really being our mother. She just was so just sweet and gentle and just very caring and loving, and it was wonderful. I don't know why she liked me. All I know is that I'm grateful for it, and I just looked up to her as my mentor, and I just loved her so much. You know, she was just a blessing in my life.
Nobody could call her Loretta or Miss
No.
Young.
No, you didn't call her that. It was Mrs. Lewis, and then later Mrs. Louis.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I have to tell you a cute story because it made me laugh. When she was living in Palm Springs, not too long before she passed away, I called her one day and I said, you know, you're such a legend and you're so incredible and so beautiful and you're so loved by everybody. Would you ever consider working again and doing a movie now? And I'll never forget this, it was so cute. She said, you know, honey, she said, no, I really wouldn't, because she said, I get submitted scripts on a daily basis. And she said, but they're not the kind of stories that I'm interested in, you know. She said, it's all, you know, sex and violence and action and all that, and they're just not the kind of stories that I would do, so I turned them down. And she said, besides, I'm too old, I'm too tired, and I'm too rich. And then she cracked herself up, and we laughed. It was so cute when she said that. I'll never forget that.
Did you ever socialize? I know she didn't socialize.
Yes. Well, one time I remember she invited us all over to her beautiful, beautiful home in LA. I believe it was on Flores Drive or whatever, off of Fountain. Yeah, and it was just an incredible home, and she had us all over there. I don't even remember the occasion, if it was Christmas or what. It's been a long time. But I remember that we all went there. And but on set, she was just so involved. You know, she would come and check our makeup and check our hair and our wardrobe and everything. She wanted everything just so. And she was just wonderful. And we all loved her. And we all loved each other. And
one happy family?
Absolutely. And that sounds silly, but it's true. Yeah.
Has it been worth it? Has it been a rewarding career to you?
Absolutely. I feel truly blessed, and I'm somewhat, I guess, semi-retired, but I mean, I'm still working when I can, and I think that the most wonderful thing are the memories, you know. I just have so many incredible memories.
You're not a tramp at all. You're a robber.
You just keep quiet and you'll be all right.
No, please, you mustn't. It doesn't belong to you.
And you to shut up.
Sometimes I get emotional about, you know, talking about them, because people will, you know, bring up certain people and certain things, events that have happened, and it's nice to reflect back and talk about the old times.
So much bad publicity has come out lately of how terribly kid actors were treated at that time, but it seems to me like you don't agree with that scenario.
Well, no, I mean, I think the difficult thing for some of, you know, my peers and the child actors, that when they had their own series and they got kind of, you know, niched into that, and then the series would end and it was hard for them to get work, there were problems, and some of them went on to get into drugs and alcohol and that, and I don't know, maybe my upbringing, my family just kind of kept me grounded, and I went to public school when I wasn't working, and my mother would always say, you know, you're blessed, and you know, you have this, but anytime it goes to your head, you're not going to be doing this anymore. And just because God has given you this talent and this blessing to work doesn't mean you're any better than anybody else. You know, you just have this gift, and be grateful for it. So I never, fortunately, got into the drug scene and the alcohol scene, and I like a little glass of wine for dinner, but I stayed somewhat normal, I guess. I like to think I am.
I thank you so much for spending some time to think back. It's and to remember, and I'm sure the audience does too. So thanks for joining us for this.
This has been wonderful, and to be able to just sit here and reminisce and talk about Loretta Young, who in my mind and heart will always be the most wonderful, beautiful actress that so many people loved, and I just am grateful that she touched my life in so many ways, and thank you for including me in this.